Hey guys, hope you're having a great day today. This video is going to be all about working on ourselves as a Christian, as a mama, as a wife, as a daughter of the King. I know for myself, when I first became a Christian, I was reading the Proverbs 31 passage, and I'm sure all of you know it, and I would read that and I would think, oh my goodness, there is just zero way that I'm ever going to be at that same level as her. Maybe that's just a figurative thing. I don't know. What is it? And so it took me many years to discover that she is an attainable person to be. You know, God gives all the Bible for instruction for us, for reproof, for correction. And I believe that passage is something for us as women, wives, mothers, daughters of the King can relate to and do. And so what I'm going to be sharing is just break up that whole section into the verses and then give my 2 cents, I would say, on each verse. And the first part says, an excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. So these verses, I think, are so important because they see how much you're worth. Do you realize how precious an excellent wife is? Like, worth more than jewels. Jewels are a lot of money, correct? Yes, a lot of money. We'd all like to have jewels. I'd like to have jewels. And so they're worth a lot. But do you realize that an excellent wife is worth far more than jewels or rubies, however the version is that you have? That just goes to show how much God values you as a wife and a mother. You know, if you think of your role as a wife, you can't be replaced. Your husband, if you're married and things are set up the way that God intended for them to be, there's no one that can replace you. You know, your husband needs you as his partner. Your husband needs you as his helper. When he's thinking about things and needs some input and some trusting input, he needs his wife to do that. You know, he's not going to be able to trust his friends because friends turn on you, people do that all the time. But a wife that is, you know, that he can trust in and take, you know, understand, know that she's not going to go away on him, that's a big, valuable thing. Think of like having a really good friend. I'm sure you have a really good friend that you can truly trust with your secrets. You can truly trust with things like that. Our husbands don't usually have too many relationships like that. Some may, but not all. And so they look for that in their wives. And so to have that is a good thing. And then you think of your children. You know, who do they go to when they need comfort? If your child falls and scrapes their knees, who do they go to comfort? Who do they go to for when they need something? You know, even our children that maybe ones that have, you know, gone astray, and I've talked to many friends whose children have grown up and they've kind of gone their own way and done their thing. But when the times get tough and they really need advice and they really need, you know, your answers, they call and they talk and they share and I knew you'd understand, Mom. I knew you. And I'm like, okay, so they know deep down. And so mothers, having a godly mother, nothing can replace that. So your value is so worth more than you can even think. And you might not think it's much, especially when you're changing diapers, feeding babies, and just routine and blah, 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 blah. It just goes through. You don't feel like you're worth doing a whole lot, but it is adding value, and it will in the years to come. If we are totally trusting in the Lord and doing what we are supposed to do, and this is going to pertain that maybe your spouse is not doing exactly what they need to be doing in life, that doesn't matter, because if we are doing what God wants us as women to do, because you can't make somebody else do something, then we have to trust that God will fully execute and honor your actions and your heart. We have to continually be trusting and be a faithful woman, no matter what. And this pertains even if your husband is not, and maybe in areas in your life that he is not doing something he should be doing, but you need to be doing exactly what God wants you to do, regardless if the spouse is not. We trust and understand that God will take care of us, even if we think that he's not listening to us, because let's say maybe our husbands are doing something wrong and you think, that's not fair. I'm not going to have that happen to me. And No. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So remember that even when things go wrong, keep trusting in God and he will see you through the end. So can you see how this verse, an excellent wife, who can find her? She's far more precious than jewels. That's a huge thing, because it's very rare. When things get tough, most end. Think of marriages, and a lot of marriages. I don't even know what the percentage is right now, but I remember when we got married, it was like 75 or 72%. It was a really high number of people that get married get divorced. And so it's a huge number. And think about, like, why is that? Because somebody didn't want to humble themselves. Someone didn't want to do what God wanted them to do because somebody else didn't do it. It's like, we can't do that. We have to do what God wants to do and work through those issues, work through those problems. Marriage is hard work. It is hard work. Trust me, it is hard work. But once you get through it, that marriage is so much stronger in the end. The next part of our verse says, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. If you've ever gone through the heartache and the trusting issues with someone that's hurt you in your past, and you never want to trust that person again, I'm sure, right? I know I went through that. What if your husband has been unfaithful to you? What if he hasn't physically been unfaithful? What if he's gone into pornography? What if he's done something where he never did something physically, but he still did something emotionally to you? And then, oh no, I'm not going to do that again, honey. I'm not going to do it. You trust, then that trust gets broken when you find he falls again. That's a hard thing to do. So what happens is we put up these walls. We put up these walls in our marriage because we're not going to allow ourselves to get hurt again. And then we don't allow our husbands access to our hearts because we're afraid that he's going to break them again. And then if you don't deal with those issues, when your husband and you are maybe having a little bit of an argument, that wound, remember we talked about soul wounds back in the series about the abundant life? The soul wounds, that's going to irk you. When your husband does something, it's just going to come up to you and you're going to spout off to him about it, and it's going to be causing more and more friction in your marriage. We also need to take the time, this verse says, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good, not harm all the days of our life. We need to let our husband access to our heart so he can understand us, so he can get to know us, so he can know who this person is, know who you are, so he can learn about you, so he can see that you are fully trusting, that you, when he tells you something, you're not going to go spouting off to your friend about what your husband did last night, or spouting off to your parents about what your husband did last night. That's not trust and not showing honor, or not showing respect to your husband. And so you need to keep the things between your husband that are between you and your husband, and let him see, so he can learn you, he can trust you, that he can share anything with you, and you're not going to go off and say anything to somebody else. He has to know that even when he has flaws and he fails and he sins, just like we all do, that you aren't going to hold that over his head, dangle that over his head like a carrot, where it's going to be like, oh, you sinned, you did me wrong, you did this. No, he has to know that you are you're his cheering section. You're right there for him. I know, honey, I know this is hard. You've got this. You're going to be so good at this. Encourage your husband. When he fails, don't show your disappointment. Encourage him, and he will get better. I know my husband is a Mr. Visionary, and Mr. Steadies, it seems like I've talked to a lot of my friends that have Mr. Steadies, and it doesn't seem like they go through a lot of issues that I've gone through, where it's not really hard to have to do things, but sometimes they can become above their husband because their husbands are so just go with the flow, and their wives do step above them more. And I know my husband, he's more Mr. Visionary, and he can try something one day and it might just sound like a crazy idea, like, hey, move your family to North Carolina, or hey, let's have 10 kids, or whatever the reason that people think is just insane. But I've learned to just go with the flow. I've learned to enjoy the ride. I've like, yeah, this is great, honey. Let's do this venture. Let's try this business, or let's just do this. Let's just do it. And even sometimes he'll talk about a lot of things that he wants to talk about. Most of them are just dreams, and they usually aren't anything that he's actually going to put forth, but if he talks about them and is able to share them with me, and I don't usually say, oh, that's a dumb idea, oh, that's a stupid idea, or no, I don't do that. I just listen to him. Oh, that sounds like a great idea, honey. That's a really good thing. Usually just talking to him and letting him speak out his ideas and what he thinks about things, that's usually enough for him to fizzle out and go, you know what, that doesn't really sound like a good idea. And I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And so, but in the beginning of our marriage, he would say things, I'd be like, that's a dumb idea, or that's not a good idea. Why would you want to do that? And I just crushed his spirit inside, and I realized that's not the way to be, because he needs to know that I'm right there to like cheer him on, root him on, and say, honey, you're going to do a great job. This is going to be great. If this is good, sweet, this is going to be a great thing for us, whatever. And so, I've had to learn over the years, and then I've had to build him up that way by just letting him talk through things. And okay, that's encouraging him, being his rooting team. That's a great thing. And then he knows that your heart is with him, and that he can fully trust that with you. The next one says, she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchants. She brings her food from afar. This woman had to make her own clothing. Now that would have to be an area that I'd really have to learn, because I'm not that good, because my kids would be wearing like flour sack towels. I can sew, but I think my Mennonite friend can vouch for me that when I think I made a dress one time, I know I made a dress one time, and there was these pleats, and I put them in the back, and she's like, Amy, those pleats are supposed to be in the front of the dress, and they were more sticking in the back like a flap. So yeah, I've learned I'm not a very good sewer. I can sew straight lines, things like that, but not put together dresses. I probably could if I took the time. Can't say I'm not good, but it's not my specialty. So I don't do that. So I'm thankful for the inexpensive clothing options for my family. So we have a lot of children. If I just went to the store and bought whatever I wanted, whenever anybody needed it, that would make us pretty broke, because that's not the way to be. So I feel like when she seeks her wool and flax and works willingly with her hands, that's me when I'm Goodwill deal shopping. And so I make my list every single season, or sometimes even throughout the year, that kids need things, and I know what they have to have. Like usually, if it's like right now, it's springtime, but a month or two ago when it started getting warm, we still had cold, but the month I would sit down and I would go through all their clothes to see what each child needed. So I wrote down shoes and shoe sizes and clothing sizes, and so then when I was going to go out and I would hit the Goodwills and the discount stores and I would be looking, I'd have my list to know what it is I needed for a child, because if I didn't, I would come home, there's a lot of the 7-8 size dresses, it seems, and for a couple of years I would just go and get a bunch of those. And I came home and I realized the child had so many clothes, and I'm like, oh my goodness, why am I buying more? And so I've learned if I have a list, I know who needs stuff and I know how to prepare for that. So for us, like sometimes I do just thrift store shopping, but sometimes it's hard with kids because they get tired and everything else. So I usually try to hit the thrift store when I'm out with something else. Sometimes I just do one trip for that, but not usually. Usually, like when I went to our discount store, I went in and I scoured through the racks real quick and grabbed a few things that I saw, and that's how I do my shopping. And so if I do a little bit each time, then I don't have so much to do when everybody's out of clothes. And I know like bathing suits are something we use all the time here. So I made sure back in the winter to think, okay, I need to make sure there's bathing suits for everybody. And so we use more modest ones. So I had to make sure I couldn't just go to Walmart and buy them. So I made sure to scope that out and try to find those and get those before it's too hot, so that I'm prepared for that. Same thing for food. I know back in Michigan, we had our ways that we could shop and it was cheap and I knew how to get my food. Well, then moving here, it's a lot more expensive for food. And so my bills went up a couple $100 just in food alone. And so I had to search out the discount stores. I had to search out different ways, and I had to learn to make things cheaper. And so same thing, like the freezer meals, all those things, homemade things. I've had to learn what it is I have to do to make our grocery budget stretch. Things like making the yogurt, things, different things, making our own bread, things that I can do that help stretch so we can have some good quality food. And so this takes time. This takes a lot of time, especially if you have a lot of little ones. Don't go thinking, oh my goodness, I got to go to all these stores when I have all these babies. No. You do what you can do at that phase in your life. Don't just go out and do this all at once. Things take time, but diligent pays off. The Proverbs 31 woman is busy applying herself to home management duties and running a successful home. And she didn't do this right at once. I'm sure it took time to do it. Okay, the next verse says, she rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. Motherhood lacks sleep. Oh yes, I think a number one complaint of moms with little ones is that they are tired. I get it. I've gone for years with no sleep. I remember sleeping like 4 to 5 hours every single night, and that's it for years. Now, I think now when I try to, if I have a night where I'm only up for 4 or 5 hours, I'm just exhausted. And so I think of how much God gives us, like when we're in that time in your life, like how God will just get you through it. So if he knows you're not going to have sleep, he'll help you figure out a way to get through it, because now I couldn't do that. I know what it's like when you have to wake up because a toddler needs breakfast, even though I was up all night with a baby and all I wanted to do is sleep. And it's like I just had to do. Sleep had to take a back seat for me in my life. Eventually that goes away and you will get the rest you need, I promise. But I realized how great it is now to get up while it's dark and start my day. And back then when I had a baby, I tried to get up a few minutes before the baby would get up so I could get a shower, things like that. But I know sometimes it's hard, especially when you have little ones. And so don't get hard on yourself if you're not getting up when it's dark with babies, because you're probably up all night long. But now I love getting up early. That is my favorite time of day. Probably at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning is my absolute favorite time, because I can get so much done in the 2 hours before my husband gets up and then my children. And so I can just focus. I can focus on my videos here. I can focus on my book writing and my blog, things like that, and get those things done that I want to get done. I can also, in the morning, as soon as I'm up, while the kids are getting breakfast, I can usually get my meals started for the day, so that no matter what obstacles come my way, I can always have the meals prepared for everybody. If I have to get chicken or meat out of the freezer, I know it's going to be thawed by dinner time because I've gotten up early and gotten it done. Preparing for my day and what foods we're going to have to eat is a priority for my household. And that's what it says in the Proverbs 41. She provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. If you get up early, you're able to plan that out, and even freezer meals, things like that. That's all about preparing for your day. The next one says, she considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. Okay, I never thought that I would ever be able to help out and provide an income in our home. My main job was just taking care of the home. I never ventured out and looked for money to make money. I always dreamed about it. I always wanted to help because my husband's the moneymaker, and I always wanted to help. And I thought, oh, if I could just make a little bit extra money, that would just be able to help stretch for this or do for this. And I'd be praying about it. I'm like, Lord, if I just had that extra cash. But the Lord knew that I would be run down back then. I would be tired with my little kids, and it would just become overwhelming and stressful. And so He knew not to provide me with an extra job back then because it would not work. Well, then when my time came and I prayed about it and what to do, I believe that instead of giving me extra money, the Lord has shown me how to really cut back on things. He showed me how to be frugal. He showed me how to budget my money. He showed me how to find things at discount stores, how to make foods on my own, how to find things cheaply. And so for me, that money that I'm saving our family, I feel is like the extra income. Now for myself, the job that I have now, when I make money from my blog, things like this online, I never dreamed of doing that. I never just jumped out on my own. Lord just put little seeds in my heart. I was nursing a baby, and He put these seeds in my heart about encouraging other women and sharing little things that I've learned. And I thought, okay, how am I going to ever do this? And this is way back before blogging even, well, I guess blogging was around a little bit, but I just didn't really know a whole lot about it. So then I started looking into it a little bit. I'm like, okay. So then I started writing little blogging posts just to myself on my little tablet that I had, and just little things I just saved up and I kept. I started doing little things. A lot of thought went into my blog before I even started, what I wanted to do. I started writing different ideas down, different things that I would plan out doing. And then over the years, it's like the Lord provided completely because I knew it was Him. He provided completely for when I set up my blog. My husband said, why don't we just do this? Let's just do it and try it. So we took the initial, I think we took some tax money and started out and paid for my blog for the first year. And so through that first year when I did it, it's like I just wrote and I'm like, okay, I had no money. How am I going to make money? I didn't want to advertise, didn't want to do any of that. And I'm like, okay, how's this going to work? Well, someone asked me to write blog posts for them, and then they paid me for them, and then they posted them on other sites, which was so different. I never realized people did that, but I wasn't allowed to post who wrote it. So again, it was God, because I was like, who does that? And so it was income to pay. So when my time came up the next March, when my domain name was all due and all that, I had the extra money to pay for it through writing these blog posts. And I'm like, okay. Then that next year is when God had me start writing my books and doing things like that. And so throughout this time, all these times I think, oh, I could always increase my money. I could do this by putting in advertisements. I could do these little click windows. I could there's all these ways that you can make money. But I realized that no, that's not what the Lord showed me in the beginning. The Lord showed me just to have a blog that people can come to without clicking through things, without having advertisements. And those are fine. That's fine if the Lord wants you to do that. But I just find it so distracting, and I did not want mine to be about that. I know the Lord didn't want me to be about that. And so even though it was tempting to make that money real quick, I didn't. I just obeyed and did what God wants me to do. And then He's blessed that. He's made it work where I've made money. And then the next year I did my home ec books, and I was able to sell those and make some money. And then just went on and on with other books and different things. And so it's been good. It's been God leading and Him financially providing. And so that was Him all on His own. I couldn't do that on my own because I would have went out, and I like it. I enjoy it. It's not stressful. It's not something, I have to get up every morning and do a blog post. I have to get up every morning and do a video. I really like doing it. It's a good thing. It's not stressful. It's enjoyable for me. I like to do it. And that's the difference between having to do the job and God just putting it in your heart to do it. The next one says, she dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. I'm sure that the writer in this part is writing about her emotional strength here, but we can go both ways. I don't think the Proverbs 31 woman was one that was lazy or who laid around all day long. She didn't waver when her husband came home from work and started complaining about his day. She didn't crumble when her friend offended her. She was strong on the inside. She was able to not take offense at things. She realized that people are people, and what they do doesn't always affect you or doesn't need to affect you. She was physically able to be strong and keep up with the demands of her household. She didn't let her lack of physical care creep up on her in life. She kept fit. She used opportunities to get some extra exercise, even if that meant just dancing with her children. She was strong emotionally so that she could handle whatever demands her mind might need. She didn't let her husband's bad day at work decide what type of day she would have the next. She stayed focused on her God. And so that's a huge thing. I know myself, like when I didn't exercise and I didn't take care of myself, I was tired. I was exhausted. I didn't want to do anything. So I finally realized I got to do something here. I'm not going to be able to keep up with these kids. And so I started exercising every day, and I try to get out every day and walk at least 30 minutes every day. no matter what. And when I don't, I can feel it and I'm tired. And so I try to do that. I've learned to not take offense. I've learned not to take my husband's burdens and struggles and put them on me. I've learned just to be a listener and just, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? And not let anything affect me that way on the inside, because it doesn't make you strong. It makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable. And then you're not going to be strong in the Lord. Okay, the next one says she perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. This woman is confident in her calling as a homemaker. She knows that she is doing all that she can to be a successful woman of her home. If she wasn't the best cook, she would learn how to do it so that she could be a best one. She did all that she could do to be the best at her job, even if this meant she had to stay up late at night to learn. The next one says she puts her hands to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. Her hands are working constantly. I know it's tempting to take the easy route of doing things. It's much easier to buy bread than making homemade bread. It's much easier to purchase things online or in stores than to wait for a deal at a thrift store. It is hard work to be frugal. The Proverbs 31 husband is delighting that his wife is willing to help stretch their income. Many women can make bad, rash decisions over one shopping trip that will set them up for a financial disaster. By staying busy with your hands to the distaff and diligently holding the spindle working, you can help some avoid some of these rash decisions. I know for myself, I could definitely go to the store and just buy whatever I wanted, and yeah, we create financial ruin in our home. But instead, I'm like, okay, I need to be frugal with things. And so my husband appreciates that. You know, he'll tell me go out and buy things. And I'm like, no, let's just wait till we find the right one, or we'll just wait and see what they're, and then waiting and investigating and researching and learning and doing and preparing and planning for that purchase instead of just buying it on a whim. And so that's something that we had to work over the years doing, and we do it, and then we do so much better financially because of that. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. Even if your husband doesn't want you to give. Now, some husbands don't want you to give their money away, and yes, that's going to be between them and God. Maybe they just feel like they work hard and they want to take their money and do with it. That's okay. That's fine. You have to honor that as the wife. But it doesn't take much extra money to make an extra loaf of bread for a neighbor, or to throw some more vegetables and stock soup into the pot and take a little bit to your neighbor to feed. And so we can always stretch our food a little bit by sharing with somebody. If you have extra clothes, if you know somebody needs them, share with them what you have. If you know somebody's in need, you should give and help, because God will bless that. You know, if you're able, you can maybe babysit for a friend. You know, if you're home with little ones and you know a friend that needs a babysitter, that's something you can do. And that's some way you can bless. If you can sew, maybe you can offer to sew and help a friend. There are many things that we can do that don't financially take from paychecks. You just have to search out and ask God what He wants you to do, that you're able to help. So don't think, oh, if I just had money, I could give. No, there's a lot of ways we can do that as homemakers and wives, by just thinking about what is it we can share, what is it we can do. It might just be helping with something, or anything, helping with schoolwork with a child, or, you know, there's so many different options out there. And so don't just take the excuse that, oh, my husband doesn't want to give me money. There is something you can do. She is not afraid of the snow, for her household are clothed in scarlet. We are from the north, so we know what it's like to prepare for cold. You have to have gloves, coats, hats, scarves, boots, snow pants, all the things. I need to make sure that my kids had footy pajamas, otherwise they would get cold at night. I had to prepare if the power were to go up during snowstorms, that we'd be able to eat, drink, and be warm. You never knew if you're going to be home or stuck at home for like a week straight. That could happen. If you're prepared, it doesn't matter. Now, moving down south, when they get snow, it seems everyone is in mass chaos, and you're literally stuck at home. Since we live up in the mountain, we're here for like 1 or 2 days until the ice or snow melts. That's just happens. And so most people around here, they all go to the store and they hurry up and they get their milk and their bread and everything. But if you just prepare beforehand, you'll be set with all of those things. We always have food on hand. We always have food that I can make. We have a gas stove so we can cook our food. We have candles, so if we need to have, you know, lights outside. And so it doesn't, yes, it affects us because I don't like not having power. I love my power. I love my running water, but I have water on hand. I have, you know, matches. I know where the lighters are. I know where the candles are. I know where the food is, so that I can use the things I need to do. And so we just plan and we prepare for things like that. I don't have to worry about my kids running out of coats for next year, because right now the winter season is done. So I made myself a list of what I need for next year. And so I know that I needed like a size 7-8 snow coat. And so I wrote that down on my little Goodwill list. And so we actually had someone give us a coat just a little bit ago, and it was a size 7-8. I'm like, okay, so I marked that off my list. And so I plan ahead and I know what I need. I write down the kids' shoe sizes, their current ones, and then I write down, so that when I'm at the store and I see the next size up, I might grab a couple pairs if I see those on sale. And you know, the same same goes for all your stock pantry. Is your family going to starve if the power goes out and you're not going to have anything left? You should always have a little bit of canned or easy food to make on hand to feed your family. What about medicines? What if we weren't able to go anywhere for a few days? Are your family going to be set with medicines, things like that? We usually try to always keep like a Benadryl type thing, the allergy thing, and then also a like a Motrin, ibuprofen, something like that. So in case we have an emergency, Band-Aids, things like that. So we're always prepared in case of something happening. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. This was half of the verses, and so I look forward to sharing the other half with you another day. So enjoy yourself, and I hope that you got this little glimpse of the Proverbs 31 woman and maybe some tips I've shared that help you think that, yeah, I could be that woman. That's something I can do. Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.